Hello, welcome to Professor Skye's Record Review, the only first listen new music review show hosted by a French professor immediately after leaving the gym. It's a different kind of episode. As you see, there's a strange word up above me, Balašević, and an American flag. Today I'm going to be doing something different. I normally do new music review shows, but today I'm going to be reviewing a very old 38-year-old album by Djordje Balašević, the great Serbian singer. And it's kind of a Christmas gift to my wife, who is Serbian. And I wanna let you know, before you turn this off, I'm gonna have some interesting thoughts here about the nature of cultural tourism and how to move beyond being a cultural tourist and into somebody who actually truly learns to embrace a culture. In my case, I have married into the Serbian culture. And I've been at the very edges of things. And I've tried to sort of like things that I think are cool. But I want to try to go beyond that and like something that is true. So if you'd like to join me, welcome to part one of An American's Guide to Balašević. I am not an expert. Everything I know from my wife, and I don't know much. So let's take this adventure with me, Bo and Toby. Actually, I can't get them to do anything. I had to work really hard to get this little shot right here. I'm very proud of this. So, I mean, look at how well framed this is. This is the main Christmas gift, by the way. Just this shot. I'm sure this will make my wife happy. Okay, so I'm going to talk about what is it that makes Balašević special, why is he hard to listen to for Americans, and then do a full breakdown of his first solo album, Pub, and what does it mean. I've been listening and reading the translated lyrics and getting into it, and this is partly for Americans to understand Balašević, but it's also partly for Serbians, who speak English, to appreciate, like, how is Balašević taken in and what does he mean? So, let's get going on our journey, shall we? So what precisely do I mean by cultural tourism, and what do I mean by a sort of more real cultural interchange? Well, I want to show you something that I got for my wife for Christmas last year, okay? This is a concert poster from 1980, a couple years before she was born, actually on her birthday, 27th of December. So it's a pretty good gift, you know? And the reason that I got it for her was because she introduced me to a lot of these bands, like Idoli and Charlo Acrobata, right? As a matter of fact, these three, Idoli, Erotični Orgasm, and Charlo Acrobata, I made a video about their album together, Pakat Naranjman. And very early on in our relationship, Mariana played this for me because she knew how much music meant to me, right? That's my wife's name, by the way. I never mentioned it. Sorry, spoiler. And basically on our second date, she's like, I've got this cool music for you that you're going to like. And it's interesting because she was totally right. I mean, the music is very cool, very accessible. When I made a video last year, I explained how this was your first Serbian or Yugoslavian, ex-Yugoslavian music choice. Because for the American audience, it is cool. It is accessible. It is, as I will explain in a second, bim-bop. Now, why do I call myself a cultural tourist? Well, at this point, the things that I liked about Serbian culture were things that I could sort of relate to. Things that were, for lack of a better term, cool. And in all cultures, you know, there are things which no matter where you come from, you can find things that are cool. It's where you get out of things that are cool that I think you start to get into the real nature of the culture. Not things that pass through your filter of what's acceptable, but things that actually mean something to the people from the places where the culture is coming from. Now, that's not to say that that music isn't loved in Serbia. I went to Serbia last summer, and that music is loved. But I needed to go deeper. And for this, I want to tell you a funny story. So I gave her that gift, and we listened to all that music all the time, you know? And I thought that I knew everything I needed to know about music from Serbia. But about 9-10 months into us dating, I'm serious, it was that long, she's like, Skye, I'm going to play you a little bit of music now. I was like, okay. Like, just so you know, this is the most important music in the world to me. I was like what? This is it. Like, this is the artist that means the most to me, that speaks the most to me, that is my favorite artist. And more than that, every Serbian in the world knows every single word to every single one of his songs, and he's the most important piece of cultural heritage. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, what's going on here? I mean, you've been playing me all this other stuff, and I've been getting into like the cool 70s and 80s stuff. Who is this guy? Well, his name is Djordje Balašević. Why haven't you played him for me? And why is he so important? Do you know why she didn't play him for me? Because he was so important. She honestly could not deal with the pain of me listening to it and being like, it's kind of cheesy, kind of folky light rock stuff. It's all right, not mine. That kind of like smug hipster garbage, okay? She couldn't emotionally handle that. This artist is such a direct line to her soul. And moreover, the soul of everything that is good in ex-Yugoslavia. Like the true soul of this entire culture, I believe, can be seen through this singer's music. And if she played it for me and I said, it's kind of trash, she couldn't have handled it. So she had to make sure that it was for real before she put herself out there. Now, before I tell you my initial impression, let me even go deeper into the myth, the legend, the importance of Djordje Balašević. Why is this person so important to my wife? And okay, on some level, I'm just kind of sputtering my wheels and I'm just talking to myself and I'm making a cute Christmas gift for my wife. I think there's more to it. Screw it, I know there's more to it. Let me tell you the story of my wife and Djordje Balašević. And this will, I think, unlock why it means so much to her and some of the power of music. So this is a map of Serbia, okay? Now, like most people who are alive today, they grew up in Yugoslavia, and Yugoslavia broke apart and became different nations. But this, I'm just going to focus now. That's a story for another day, a very sad story, which we might touch on a little bit here. But it's a very small country. We were able to drive basically across the whole thing within one day. But like many small countries in the old world, the smallness of the country does not indicate a lack of richness or cultural diversity. So the importance of Balašević is that my wife grew up here, in this little town called Bor. It's like a mining town. It's now basically owned by some weird Chinese multinational. Very dark, sad mining town. It's like the West Virginia of Serbia, but not as nice as the worst parts of West Virginia. And I like West Virginia, by the way. My brother lives in Morgantown. It's a great place. But what I mean is, as far as like your image of a mining industrial place that's a little bit in disrepair, that's what the town of Bor is like. It means pine tree, by the way. So she grew up there. And you have to imagine, I mean, Serbia is not the most economically advanced or technologically comfortable country. So she grew up there in a very dark time, in a time of civil war, in a time of genocide, where her people were committing genocide on other people at that time. The greatest loss of life in Europe since World War II. But the entire time she was there, she was always an outsider. She was an outsider because her family was from over here, Voivodina, this area in the northwest. So her whole life she's growing up, and this guy Balašević happens to be from this area of Voivodina, which has its own entirely different culture, entirely different music, entirely different accent, entirely different spirit. So here she is growing up, and it's only, 4 hours distance, okay? It's not that far. You know, it'd be easier for me to get from here to there than it is for me to get from here to Boston, as an example, Rochester to Boston. But the spiritual divide was so great that for her growing up in this little isolated place, it was her primary connection to this greater sense of a greater place, of a place where she was more at home and had a sense of home, even though it's all Serbia. And to America, I go there and they tell me about all these differences, and I can't really tell the difference. I can't really tell the difference between Bosnians and Croats and Serbians, much less the difference between someone from Novi Sad and someone from Niš. But this is the kind of thing that if you're going to be an American and you're going to try to actually understand a culture, you can't just listen to Idoli, you can't just listen to the cool stuff that reminds you of the new wave and make you feel comfortable. You have to get into this deeper sense of like, what do these things mean? What does it mean to be from Novi Sad? What does it mean to be from Voivodina? I can't understand it at all. The regional differences in America are so erased at this point. Okay, fine, you know. New Orleans, if you take someone from New Orleans and have them move to rural Minnesota, right? Okay, there might be some cultural differences there, but it's not nearly as fierce. And moreover, if you're growing up in a time of civil war, in a time of genocide, in a time of being bombed by the United States, I imagine that feeling some kind of pride in your country that goes outside of nationalism is really important. And so I think for many people, not just my wife, Balašević represents humanism. The themes in his songs are all about people and humanism. And the only force that can combat nationalism, the only force that can combat nationalism is humanism. That's it. The sense that we're all together, we all have similar experiences, we all have similar lives, we're all similarly flawed. And in studying Balašević, just as much as I have, you know, she's played me, 30 of his songs, and I've spent a long time listening to this album, I realized that's what he provides. He is, I believe, the best part, not just of Voivodina. He doesn't just represent the best part of Serbia. He represents the best part of humanity. And very few musicians are able to do that, I think. I'm not even going to go off the top of my head as to what other musicians can do it. But I believe that's the importance of Balašević. But why was it hard for me to like? For a lack of a better term, I didn't like him because he wasn't cool. He didn't have, like, when Mariana played him for me for the first time, I don't know, she played a little bit of his later stuff, and it sounded like music that I associate with, like, bad European television, you know, where there's just way too many lights on the screen, kind of like American Idol. Has a very similar lighting system, like just way too many lights, and some cheesy male singer with lots of makeup singing some song, and it didn't have that spark of cool that I could relate to. There's a couple indicators that meant I wouldn't like it. Like he used chimes, and I don't think you can ever hear chimes, and I don't think there's a good song with chimes. I don't think that's can happen. And he used fretless bass. Even worse, like a fretless bass is usually an indicator that whatever music is going to be made, I am not going to like. But I want to get back to this theme of cultural tourism. You see, I love my wife, and I don't think it's possible for me to truly love my wife and truly understand her culture if I don't understand the things about her culture that she relates to the most. I want to make a food metaphor. I mean, food is a great way to understand culture anyway, right? A lot of times, the only way we understand culture is through food. I mentioned bibimbap earlier, you know? Bibimbap is awesome. It's a Korean food, you know, and you get like little like grilled meat on there, and it's on rice, and it's got the nice sauce in it. It's very easy to taste. But bibimbap is not the soul of Korean food. It's the little pickled cabbage next to the bibimbap that matters, kimchi. Kimchi is, in very many ways, the soul of Korean food, and one might even argue the soul of Korean people. I spent a little time in Korea. I mean, I wasn't in the war. I mean, like, you know, I spent 5 weeks in Korea, and I ate a lot of Korean food. And I hate kimchi. I think it tastes nasty. But every single time I eat Korean food, I always eat the kimchi. It makes the meal. You cannot truly say you have eaten Korean food unless you are eating the kimchi too. Now, I wish I liked it more. I would be lucky if I liked it more. There's something about the taste. I don't really like pickled food that much, but I eat it because I'm trying to respect the food. I'm trying to respect the culture. I mean, there's a kimchi museum. Everybody in Korea has their own favorite style of kimchi, and they talk about it all the time. Now, I want to be careful. I also spent a little bit of time in Japan, and when you're in Japan, they're very proud of this one kind of sushi that all Westerners hate. called natto. It's made with like this disgustingly fermented tofu. I loved it. It was great. Like I tried that and I enjoyed it. It wasn't like the kimchi. But that's a different thing. That's more like, oh, you think you can handle us? Well, take this. Try some fugu. Try some poison. No, that's not what I'm talking about. This isn't some kind of performative love of a country. I'm not trying to find the most complicated music, the most difficult music. But what is the soul music of a place? Now, I study French, obviously, and there's a lot of French music that people consider cool. You know, Serge Gainsbourg you can listen to and it's cool, you know. But when you get to Georges Brassens as an example, well, things get a little bit more tricky. Or Léo Ferré, you know, like musicians where if you're not from the culture, immediately listening to it doesn't get you connected in. So I want to focus on the kimchi of Serbian music, Djordje Balašević. I want to truly love my wife, and I want to truly love and understand her culture. And it's going to take me a long time. I had to listen to the album I'm going to review about 5 times before I actually started to like it, before I started to understand it, and before, I will be honest, I've started to love it. I had to read the translations of the lyrics. I had to spend time with it. I had to do it in secret because my wife and I are inseparable. But I needed to get beyond this to understand what is great about Balašević. So to try to really get to understand Balašević better, I'm sort of doing this whole Christmas project. I'm making this video, and I ordered a cassette tape from Serbia. That's the Serbian Post. And I'm going to open it up now. I'm going to seal it back again when I give it to her for Christmas, the day after tomorrow. Well, I'm going to release this video on Christmas. And it is Djordje Balašević's first, I hope it is, yes, his first solo album, Pub. And apparently he was in like a couple other bands in the 70s. I don't know, but I'm just going with his solo work. And so there it is, Balašević Pub. I have a tape player in my house, so we'll be able to listen to this. And I kind of presume this is the way that she would have listened to it as well, you know? I mean, it's not like... things were not easy in the 80s and 90s in Serbia, to put it lightly. And so here we have the liner notes, and here we have the picture. Now, the other thing about Balašević is, you know, I've known that he's so important to her for a while. I've tried to get into it. But this year I've kind of gone all in. Oh, look, it says Made in Yugoslavia. It's cool. This is interesting because it's pretty close right after the time when Tito, the leader, the communist leader, dictator slash beneficial dictator of Yugoslavia died, and everything fell apart and the Civil War was to come. So this time, the early 80s, was very fertile. As a matter of fact, all the cool music that I like the Idoli and all that, actually comes from this time as well. It's this horrible time of transition where things went from a period of relative stability and peace to ultranationalism and war. So this is the record I'm going to review. And you know, last year I got her that poster of those other bands. This year I got her that yellow one framed. But then also, just for good measure, I got her a framed poster of this album. So I'm going to have that on in the background. Merry Christmas, Ljubanica. Okay, so let's talk about the album now that we're here. Oh, also, you'll see here in the back it's autographed. I bought an autographed version, even though I am pretty much certain it's fake. One funny thing, you know, when talking to all the Serbians I've spoken to, whenever I've spoken with them about like, is there a chance of me buying something fake? They're like, yes. If it can be faked, it probably is faked. So the autograph, I don't know if it's real. I don't even think it really matters. This is an original 1982 publicity shot. As you can tell, it directly matches the cover. And we'll get into it in a second. It's funny because we went to Novi Sad, which is the capital city of the Voivodina region where this guy comes from, where Mariana's spiritual home is. And she said, I can take you to his house. And I'll show you, I'll split the screen, I'll show you a picture of his house. I mean, we were right there. We even took a video in front of his house, which I might include here if I can figure out how to do it. Okay, it's going. All right, so if you get super advanced into Serbian music, which I'm not, you eventually end up loving a guy named Djordje Balašević, and this is where he lives. Like right now, I could ring his doorbell and bug him, but my wife won't let me because he's a really good guy, and I don't want to bug him. But this is like Bob Dylan's house for Serbian people, so it's kind of cool. Awesome. And if I figured out how to do it, I hope you enjoyed it. But she was very insistent, don't bother him. Don't find him, don't ask him for an autograph. He's too special. His life, he just lives the life, he just lives in that town. He's like an ambassador to the UN and stuff, but he just lives in that town and isn't bothered and just lives this life of a cultural giant. So let's get into it finally. Get into this cultural giant. I don't know how long I've been talking here about cultural sushi and all this stuff, but I think it's worth emphasizing because even if you're not married to a Serb, and you're probably not, statistically there's not that many of them, I think there's something worth really analyzing. What is it that a culture loves? And if this is the most universal artist of any culture, let's study it. So what do I think about this record? Well, the things that I like about this record is that every single song is a story. I don't think he sings that much about himself, or if he does, it's kind of obliquely. In a way, he's following the French tradition of chanson, which just means song. And it's kind of like these singers who sing about life, sing about other people's lives, empathize with them, express their experience. And it's one of these great shortcuts to good humanism, the commonalities between all people. And every song is about somebody. For the most part, the people in this album are on the outskirts of society, or they are past their prime. There's something pathetic about every single character on this album. But also there's a beauty in that patheticness. I think this is part of what people like about him. He's not singing about like, I'm a rock and roll man, he's not singing bravado. He's not singing about how great he is. He's just singing these songs and these stories about people who are past their prime, past their glory, outside of the society. And very clearly, he's trying to be honest. He's trying to reach some kind of level of emotional honesty. Now, musically, this is not that difficult of an album for me to listen to. There's basically two modes, and one mode I don't like. The one mode is it's kind of like a throwback 50s vibe, like da-da-da-da, like do-do-do-do-do, like a weird thing that happened in the 70s. And I don't know, can a communist, okay, this is going to sound really, but can someone who grew up in a communist society like imitate the music of America in the 50s, in the 80s? Like, what is screw it, I'm wrong. Of course they can. But something about it just feels weird, feels a little bit inauthentic, like having him do a sort of retro 50s rock and roll sound. But maybe I'm wrong. And if anybody who knows Balašević is watching this wants to correct me, go ahead. I'm not an expert. I'm a dummy who just got lucky, okay? So just tell me why I'm wrong about that. But that's only about 2 or 3 songs on the album. The rest of it is more kind of folksy. I was listening to it, and my first reaction was that it was kind of like Dire Straits, like very clean electric guitar. But then actually I realized it's a lot like J.J. Cale, and that really helped me to understand him. Kind of like laid back and cool songs. More engaged than J.J. Cale. Like you get the sense he really cares about what he's talking about, which I don't always get the sense with J.J. Cale. So that's an overview of the album. I'll now go sort of, track by track on here, starting off with track 1, Ilona. This is one of these old style rock songs. When I set myself to this project, I heard it and I was like, oh no. Ilona, all that Serbian stuff. But the more I listen to it, the more I realize it's actually quite nice. The end of the chorus is interesting. It's a track about a sort of, see, that's our dog. That used to be her dog that's barking. I'm going to leave that in there because I'm just going to keep this real. If this is like a love letter to my wife. Hey, Toby, could you stop? I'm making a video for your human. Okay. So it's a song about like a sexy hitchhiker, which is not my favorite theme, but ultimately it ends up being a song about growing up and being old and having memories. And I think a lot of this album is about that. He was a pretty young guy when he released this. I don't know how old, but not that old. I think he was in his 30s. But still, there's a lot of this thematics about getting old. And then we get to the second track, Ratnik Paorg Srca. Serbia, I would like to buy a vowel for your whole language. You need more vowels. So Ratnik Paorg Srca basically roughly translates to warrior with a peasant heart. And this is what I really associate most with Balašević, this kind of music and this soundscape. And I'll actually play it for you as an example. It's a song about a soldier who's a peasant. It's a little bit about class and war. And so it's about a soldier from the First World War. And there's so much. Okay, so this is the thing. Mariana told me that even if I have the lyrics translated, I will never understand them, which is not the best thing to hear or to tell somebody if you're trying to get them into something. But I kind of get the point. It's like Dylan or Brassens, going back to French, you know, like there's a certain degree to which even if you understand the actual words, the effort it takes to understand the deeper meaning goes beyond simple translation. This is why I believe understanding Balašević will help me truly understand this culture. So it's about this soldier who's back from the 1418 war, which of course was started, well, the inciting incident was based on Serbian nationalism, which is always a problem historically. But the sounds are, and I'll play the song for you in a second, the sounds are a lot more what I associate with the music that I heard when I was in Novi Sad. First of all, music is everywhere in Serbia. People are always listening to music, singing folk songs, singing along. This feels like one of these songs I might have heard in the air. You know, there's accordion and guitar, and it's a song about a soldier, but he's not that great of a soldier. He appears to be sort of a coward. He talks about sleeping with lots of women. It's really a anti-war song. But what I love about it is that anti-war songs like War is Hell is not anti-war. War is Hell is some kind of way of expressing that there's something noble and awesome and gnarly and fight and kill and it's hell and oh. A true anti-war song demystifies war, demystifies being a soldier, demystifies heroism, and just makes it clear that it's some young kid given a mission, given a gun, hoping not to die. That's what this song is. And it's all from the perspective of young people talking to this guy. So the chorus is all him saying we were young, we were young, we were young. It's just beautiful. It's just such a beautiful song. And every word is wrapped around every note. And there's this intimacy and this vulnerability that goes into the singing that I was such an idiot. Well, I'm not an idiot. I'm open-minded. I knew I was an idiot. But when I first heard it, I was like, I don't know, kind of cheesy. It's not. And it just really emphasizes this importance of humanism, which is to recognize our weakness, recognize how cowardly we truly are at our hearts. So I'm going to play you a little bit of this song right now, Warrior with a Peasant Heart.
Mi smo bili derani, pričao nam braca o mirisu mora I o patroli od koje je bežao, pa kako je opsovo nekog majora I zbog tog posle na robi ležao.
So I hope you heard what I heard. If you didn't, listen to it again. The accordion, the way the voice is, I want to emphasize that sense of the words being wrapped around the notes. Now the next track, the third one, Zasve Yekriv Thomas Sawyer. Thomas Sawyer. It's all about Tom Sawyer. I don't quite know what it's about because there's no English translation on the internet. Lyricstranslate.com is a great site. But hey, Serbs, can you get on this? Can you translate this song too? As far as I can tell, it's this beautiful track about the way that American culture or Western culture or dominant Western culture, it's hard to figure out whether or not Serbia is East or West. They don't always know themselves. So I'll just let you debate about that in the comments if you want. It's funny because it's all he's talking about his actions as a kid and his silly things that he did, and then says blame it on Tom Sawyer. So it's, that book shouldn't exist. So it's an interesting take on the relationship between like impressionable youth and the idea that we can just blame media on it. And even more that we can blame these dreams. I'll read you some of the lyrics that I liked that I found translated. The Mississippi is also to blame. We dreamed of on our old linden tree. Where we were watching the canopy circle, how the sky all the way to the stars, Tom sails, it's his fault. So this great idea of like the dreams and the dreams that might take you away from doing what you're supposed to do as a kid. It's the fault of Tom Sawyer, Luke Skywalker, whoever. Nice horns on this track. Again, it's one of the sort of 50s style songs. It's a little bit like upbeat and maybe a little bit cheesy, but some really nice guitar. Very kind of Mark Knopfler style, Dire Straits, J.J. Cale style guitar. Nice layered guitars as well. And then a real highlight of the album, Za Treću Smenu. I think Smenu. Za Treću Smenu, which is the third shift. And I believe this is sort of a working class communist song about being in your Middle Ages. I would say this is the best music so far. It's kind of a nice woozy guitar, has a bridge with some excellent piano work. And here's some of the lyrics that give me that indication. Do you see where I am? In what age? Weird birds fly through my dreams because I'm too young to think about the grave, but already too old to count stars. He's a very good lyricist. I don't understand it, by the way, but I understand enough to know that he's a good lyricist. So I think this is part of what makes him so endearing to people. You know, he makes references to like proletariats and comrades on here, and I don't think it's some kind of pro-communist statement. I think it really is this idea that we're all sort of working, and this third shift is the sort of third shift of life. The next track is not one of my favorites. Lepa Protina Kci. I didn't make that up. KCI. 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 It means the priestess's daughter, or the priest's daughter. On one hand, it's a super creepy song about a guy looking at a young girl taking a bath, I think. Not like a man looking at a young girl, like a young boy looking at a young girl, or not like teenage love, that kind of thing. But this is where it becomes very clear that Balašević is probably his biggest influence is Leonard Cohen. He sings in a very similar Leonard Cohen style. The wistfulness of the music, which is a word that is nowhere on my copious notes here, but I think that's the term that best describes a lot of his music. It's wistful. That's very Cohen-esque, but he sings better than Cohen, and the song's a little bit more accessible. And ultimately, this song that could just be a creepy song ends up being a beautiful statement, again, on youth, on past love, on feeling in some ways that life has passed you by, which I think is one of the primary themes of Poob. As he says, and I kiss good ones, easy ones, some right ones, some not, and they are all fairies, while they are queens, and they are irrelevant compared to her. So nothing could possibly compare to the priest's daughter who he saw taking a bath once when he was younger. I think. Again, please correct me if I'm wrong, Balašević fans. It all kind of reminds me of this scene in Citizen Kane, where Bernstein, I found the quote here, Bernstein, who's a very old man, an old friend of Citizen Kane's, talks about a memory. This is what he says. A fellow will remember a lot of things you wouldn't think he'd remember. You take me. One day back in 1896, I was crossing over to Jersey on the ferry. And as we pulled out, there was another ferry pulling in. And on it, there was a girl waiting to get off. A white dress she had on. She was carrying a white parasol. I only saw her for 1 second. She didn't see me at all. But I'll bet a month hasn't gone by since I haven't thought of that girl. Wistfulness, I think, is the real importance here. Not, hey, I saw some hot chick, but this connection between youth and beauty and time as it's passed on. Next is, I think, the greatest hit off this album, Pesma o jednom petlu. So I did a little bit of research, and there's not much written in English on Balašević, but I did read that this is kind of a region-specific thing to Voivodina, because Voivodina is a very, very rich farmland. And this is a story about a farm. It's a farm story, but it's not really. It's a story about a male chicken. Now, when I read the English translation of this, one of the words was X'd out, and I couldn't figure out why. Well, you see, and I actually texted this to she was next to me on the elliptical next to me. I was trying to do this in secret. And I just texted her when I figured out what the word is supposed to be. And here, to make sure I'm not swearing, I am not referring to the male sexual organ. I'm referring to a male chicken. The word that he repeats over and over again in the song is cock. He's singing about a cock. He's singing about a cock that when he was younger would go around attacking all the hens, attacking everybody, even the horses, and how now he's kind of older and his cock is more tired, and he's trying to tell people, enjoy and let your cock go free when you're young, because then you will be happy and you won't regret it when you're older. This is very much what I associate with a lot of the music that I listen to. Obviously, it's ribbled, right? The same word, I guess, in English exists in Serbian for the same double entendre. But it's really what I associate with what I heard when I was in Novi Sad. You know, accordions, there's kind of this chant at the end where everyone's singing la 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 la. And I bet if I walked into any bar anywhere in Serbia and started singing the first three words of this song, everybody in the entire place would take a shot of their rakia and sing along with me. I think it's that universal. And okay, I get it. It's a stupid joke about, oh, the word cock means two different things. But I don't think it's just that. It actually reminds me of, again, Djordje Balašević, the French singer who just plays guitar and sings. He sang a lot about like sex and dirty stuff. But it wasn't just about that. There's always a secondary meaning. And here, the secondary meaning is again tying back into this theme of feeling older and feeling wistful for your younger days. I will also say one question, and this might be a little bit, okay, I don't know much Serbian. I know very little. But one thing I know is that most words are slang for the male sex organ. One of them is patka, which means duck. So there's a lyric in this song where he talks about how his male chicken would also go after patka, essentially saying, in my mind, my cock would chase after dicks. Is this about bisexuality? I don't think so. I don't think they're that forward there. Is it? Am I just misreading it? Am I just taking, and I hope that all the Serbians who are watching this are either laughing because I'm so wrong or laughing because I'm so right. I don't know. The thing about this track is that the tenderness of his voice prevents it from being just some lascivious, like, you know? Like, he's so sincere when he sings it. The violin echoes the melody on the last verse, and you just want to dance. You want to do the Serbian like wedding dance that I learned. We just kind of like walk around in circles and wave a little like handkerchief. You know, it's party music with meaning. It's then followed up by basically the title track, Boja Zvani Pub. And this is another song in the mold of the J.J. Cale sound. Like if you told me this was a J.J. Cale song translated into Serbian, I would believe you. By that, I mean very clean guitars, upbeat, driving, kind of swinging rhythms, low-key singing, but at the same time done with a certain level of soul and integrity. Now, when I got this poster, and when I got this tape, I was sad because of the name, Pub. I looked it up on Google Translate. Pub means a pub, a bar. I'm like, this doesn't work. My wife doesn't drink. I don't drink. I mean, not really, barely ever. So like, is this like some party rock album where it's all about like drinking rakia, which is the alcohol they drink in Serbia, and like getting drunk and all that? So I was like, well, no, I'm just going to give it to her. I got the other one. I got the big yellow poster for her in case this album was just some trashy album about how awesome it is getting drunk. But it turns out I was totally wrong, And it has nothing to do with that. This song is all about Boja, which is the name of this character in the song. Again, most of the songs are about characters. The Jack. Like this card, the Jack. Like he's talking about cards. Poob means Jack in cards. So after all this, I thought I was like really stuck and I was like getting this lame album cover, but I wasn't. And this is just, it's really worth reading the translation of this. It's this beautiful, charming story about a gambler who's always at the outskirts, at the edges. He's able to win bets against barons. He's able to win bets against shopkeepers. He's like always on the run. It's like a fun sort of like gambling, rambling story about a guy. It ends with them saying he just disappeared one day. Maybe cards took him all the way to Prague or Vienna. No one's heard a word about him in a long time. Is he still hanging around the earth, or has he thrown in the towel? And now he plays with the angels in heaven, Raub, Préférence, and Pontoon, which are all different card games. The chorus is, it's no use having money, my nephews. It's no use being eager. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful chorus. It's this character who obviously doesn't have children, this Poob, this Boja, the Poob, running around and telling people that life is just to be lived. There's no point in saving money. There's no point in having these things. Just go forward and live your life. All into this great theme throughout this entire album. Even the first track talks about Peter Pan, Tom Sawyer, Boja, these kind of folk heroes sung about by this folk hero himself. The second to last track was a low-light predlog. I don't really know what it means, like preference or tendency. I don't know what. I couldn't find the translation for this either. It has kind of like a saxophone solo. It does have real drums and the best drumming on the album. I will say that this is, 1982 is where you might have ended up getting stuck with an album with like lots of like drum machines and synthesizers. Synthesizers are used sparingly and the drum machines are not present at all. So this at least has a nice drum track, but it ends with like cha-cha-cha, not great. And then it ends with the excellent existential ballad Na Pola Puta. And this has some great guitar. Apparently, the guitar is by a guy named Josip Bošek. I don't know. That's what it says here, as far as I can read. And it's an interesting track because it sort of sounds like a cheesy ballad, but it's really not. It means halfway there, and it's again about being at your midlife, and it's. Well, I'll talk about the guitar first. The guitar is interesting because the whole song starts with like a little guitar run, and then in the middle of the song, there's a beautiful guitar solo, like a great guitar solo that's sometimes echoed, two playing the same time. It's really quite nice. Thematically, it's funny because when you don't speak a language, you notice words a lot. Like you notice certain words. So I happen to notice a word all throughout this album, put, which means road or path. And like when I listen to Spanish music, I always hear corazón, which means heart. And you'd think, if you listen to an album, the word I would understand the most are the derivatives of the word for love, Liebe. But I don't think I heard love once or twice on this album. Basically, the main thing I hear is path and road and way. And here on his first album, his first solo album, he's talking about already being halfway through. In some ways, there's really unfortunate gospel vocals on the chorus. But then when I read the lyrics, I realized one of the things they're saying that sounds the cheesiest is just the repetition of the words, it's all smoke. And it goes into the bizarre existential nature of this album that just keeps going back to this theme of just everything passing and having to enjoy the day and remembering when you could enjoy the day better. And it's just an excellent cry for humanity, which I think is ultimately what makes this such a great album. So I'm going to pack this back up. I'm going to wrap these things. I made my daughter and my wife leave the house so that I could make this video. I am going to try one more thing before I end this video, which I don't think you should watch. It's not going to be good. But I'm going to try playing and singing the first verse of the last song, Na Pola Put. I have fun trying to figure out how to sing in Serbian. And so I'm going to do that now. Please don't watch it. It's not going to be good. I need to first off say this is a very difficult song to sing. I'm not a good singer, and I had to add the accent marks because I'm serious about doing this. So here we go. You ready, Bo? Don't be scared. I'm gonna sing. You love it when I sing, maybe. Okay. Hej, mnogie wracam z ilocją I mnogie wracam mutio Noszę srećami zlam I daže naš Trisam banke se patrošio A dam nisam ni slutio Da svo to tak blizo vrijam Jednom za uvek Wait, no. It goes like Vihoram jednom si uvek. Even Bo doesn't like that. All right. Merry Christmas. Actually, in Serbia, Christmas is in like 14 days, so I don't know. May Mr. Frost come and give you all presents. Until next time, there's the camera.